We're gonna do an amazing content production day right now. Which is what we wanted to do anyways, just finding ways how you can make it fun. And here's how we will make it fun. First of all, we're gonna start uploading the next YouTube video. Yeah, I sometimes just need this, like time for myself. Just doing the things that I want to be doing. Before I needed so much more of that, but now we also still like that and appreciate this very much. Okay, cool. So we upload that, we put in a pun, and yeah, we're eating palta with amazing honey and bee pollen. Bee polla, yeah, yeah. This is good. Oh, nah, wow. Oh, well. Yeah, alright. Let's say 2020. 2020 broke the water. Yeah, we are speaking like a millionaire. Yes, I'm a millionaire speaking. Yes, I'm a millionaire speaking. Now we're just going through labor. Through labor. The world is born. Hey, hey, yeah, Part 2 of 2, yeah, yeah. It's fine, it's so easy. Yeah. Daily Documentation und so mache ich es fun für mich auch 12 Minutes nur. Oh ja, oh ja, oh hey. Hey, ja, yeah, hey, ja, So we got
Alex Hormozy, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Very excited.
Truly a pleasure.
Mutual.
Let me ask, why do smart people stay poor?
They don't do the things that makes people rich. And I think they probably convince themselves that they're smarter than they are. And so if you were smart, then you would be rich. And so then it follows that there's probably a series of traits of behavior that you don't do, either because you think you're above them, or you don't know about them. So either it's a declarative knowledge deficit, meaning you don't know about the thing, which has nothing to do with the intelligence. Like if somebody eats a banana, and they're from a different country and they just eat it through the skin, it doesn't mean that they're stupid, it means they're ignorant, which is very different. That's a declarative deficit. Then there's procedural deficits, which is knowing how to. And I think one of the big difficulties with smart people is they have tremendous amounts of declarative knowledge and very little procedural knowledge. And so it's like saying you read a book on how to do a private equity deal and you know everything that has to happen, but you've never done a private equity deal. It's probably unlikely that you know how to do a private equity deal. And so delineating those things has been helpful for me. And since the procedural knowledge has significantly more utility on a daily basis from a money-making perspective, I have reduced, or at least this is me transitioning to me, but like I have reduced the amount of time that I spend on declarative knowledge. And I try to get to the procedural part of it as fast as I possibly can, because I know that I'll learn significantly more by failing and doing it than reading 100 books on sales versus doing 100 phone calls. Like you'll learn a lot more in the first 100 calls.
Yeah, it's interesting. This to me is, I'm always trying to get entrepreneurs to, one, think from first principles, which most people don't even know what that means. So you start by defining it. But this feels like that, getting to understand the essence of what it is so that you understand it the way that somebody understands a combustion engine. So you can get in and be like, well, I know what has to happen for this car to go. And if I know what has to happen, you can break it, can pull it apart, and I'll be able to put it back together because I actually understand how this works. So how does wealth creation work?
You have to have a mechanism for letting people know about your stuff. And so that can happen on a variety of channels. That typically happens either one-on-one or one-to-many. And so one-on-one would be you knock on doors, you reach out to people via DM, you send emails, you send direct mail, you make phone calls, you send text messages. Any of those are one-on-one outreach. Is one way of letting people know. You could do one-to-many to people who already know who you are, which is basically today's equivalent of a billboard, which is social media. You make posts, you make content. The third way would be that you run paid advertisements. So on those same platforms, you just pay to get the exposure rather than doing it by earning it through quality content. And then the kind of like the door four would be using those three methods to then get someone who already has the type of person that you want to advertise to, and structuring some sort of deal with them. But you'd still need to reach out to them one-on-one. You'd have to make content to attract them, or you'd have to run an ad to get to that person. So these are the core things that someone must do to promote whatever they have. Because if we think about it from what must occur in order for a transaction to happen, well, people have to know that you exist or that your product exists. No one can buy something without knowing it exists. And so we have to start with promotion. The second component is that they have some sort of voluntary exchange. And so that means you have goods and services that are exchanged for money. And so I think the idea of like money being created really only happens with the government, but for everybody else, we exchange for it. And so there are people all around us. Like one of my really fun exercises is looking at whatever room you're in and knowing that everything that was there's a business behind it. So like the walls you have, there's the person who manufactured the raw materials, there's the person who sourced the materials, there's the labor that went to installing it, there's an architect who designed it, and then you look at this mic and you're like, okay, well there's this foam thing which you probably got from a third party, then there's the mechanisms inside, which is another business, there's the distributor that you bought this from. Like there's all these pieces. When people are like, man, I don't know what opportunities there are, I'm like, you can literally open your eyes and everything that you see has a business behind it. And so from the value component, for people who are, I'll just tie this into people who are starting out, I recommend most people start with services because it requires no capital and you require time. And when you start out, you use what you have. And so if you have no money and you only have time, then you trade the time for money. And so either you're going to do something that other people don't want to do that they know how to do. So like taking someone's trash out, doing lawn care, washing things, like cleaning. Those are all things that people know how to do but don't want. Then the second level of that is doing things that people don't want to do or know how to do. And obviously that's knowledge work, which you get. The amount that you can get paid is predicated on the value that whatever that skill deficiency is to the other person. And so I think about it like that. The person has to know you exist, so you have to do one of those advertising activities I referenced. And then the thing that you give them is you're going to give them some amount of time back, either the time to learn the skill or the time to do the skill. And then once that exchange is made, then both people say thank you because they didn't want to do the work and you wanted the money. And so everyone wins. And then around and around we go.
Okay, so the around and around we go. You and I both know that even though you just laid out a lot of things that are very, very true, do you think about the gap as to why the vast majority of humanity will not be able to translate that into actual money?
I think a lot of people spend a lot of time on everything that isn't revenue generating. And so everything that's not what we just outlined, like if you're not reaching out to people one-on-one, you're not posting content, or you're not running ads, or getting in touch with someone who already has an audience of the people you want to reach, if you're not doing that right now, then nothing else you do matters. It doesn't matter. You have to have something to sell, which, like I said, you can start with your time. Very easy. And my recommendation is to go and get money from a stranger. Doesn't matter what you sell. Just get $1 from a stranger to actually walk through the process. That's the procedural knowledge. Like it's one thing, okay, oh shoot, how do I take a credit card? Oh, that's a whole nother thing. Oh, I have to get a payment process. Oh, to get a payment process, I need a bank account. Oh, to get a bank account, I need an LLC, right? So like you walked in, you're like, oh, here we go. Now I can get my first $1 across. Once you get the first $1 across, the second one comes very fast. And so why don't people do the stuff that it takes to make money? Because they're doing everything else that doesn't make money.
So I am now teaching a business scaling course.
Oh, cool.
And so, yes, it actually is a lot of fun. Where can people find it?
Oh, sure.
It's so funny because the answer, of course, is school, your company. But I promise we did not talk about that, set that up. But yeah, on school. And it's got me asking a lot, like, okay, I really want these people to be successful for no other reason than to be a glowing testimonial. And so what's going to be the place that they fall down? There is a concept in sailing that I am beginning to think, other than intellect, which unfortunately matters, I'm beginning to think is like the thing. Okay. It's called velocity made good, VMG.
Okay.
And the whole idea is that you can have a lot of wind, but if your sails aren't angled in the right direction, you could be moving fast, but not going in the direction that you want to go. You could be not moving at all because your sails just aren't able to capture it, or you could actually be moving fast in the direction that you want to go. And that to me, like pulling that apart as to what are the things that people don't understand, what are, like, if we were going to make angling the sales not a metaphor but like a reality, what is it, like, as somebody who's now scaled a business tremendously, what is it in all of those things that allows you to capture the potency of your intellect, to understand that just making content doesn't do it. The content has to be aimed in a direction. It has to have a goal in mind. How would you teach entrepreneurs how to, quote unquote, angle the sales?
So the process that I follow is common factors analysis for basically a retroactive look back window. Now that sounds like a whole bunch of fancy words, but basically I look back at stuff I did and see what worked better than other stuff. And then I say, okay, well, the top 10%, what things that they have in common? And then the bottom 10% or the bottom half, what things that did those lack compared to the top 10%? And then I try and do a next batch of activities, whether it's phone calls, whether it's content, whether it's product iterations, that then do more of the thing that worked. And so that process has been, I think, the fastest feedback loop that I've had. So rather than trying to find like a specific course around something super niche, which it gets really difficult the more niche it is, I rely on the universe for feedback, which is like, we have to try 100 repetitions of whatever the thing is, look at the top 10 or 20%, look at the common factors, and then do a whole next batch of 100 with those common factors. If performance goes up, then the variables that we isolated were the correct ones. And then within that next batch, there will be another top 10 or 20% that by variation of repetition, which will always happen, there will be other mutations like in DNA that occurred in that subset that I can then replicate again. And that process is how I got good at sales. That's how I started making content. But I think the first piece that people stop, that they prevent themselves from doing, is doing the 100 repetitions, because they think that it's the fallacy of the perfect pick. Like they're going to get it all right so that they don't have to fail the first time. But like one of my favorite scenes in The Matrix is when Neo tries to jump across both buildings and then he falls in Cypher. Everyone's like, what does it mean? And he's like, everybody falls the first time. So even the one falls the first time. Obviously wasn't the one that, whatever, we can get into that. But I just like that as a failure as an assumption rather than something to avoid. Like Elon was able to get the rockets up because he failed 5 times faster than people were able to do one. So he got 5 failed rockets out before he got a 6th. And everybody was looking at the 5 failures, but he's like, well, look at how much further we got with each one. And I think that so one of the difficulties with skill is that masters have more milestones along the way. And so they're able to mark progress with more nuance. A beginner only sees kind of a binary outcome between it worked or it didn't work. But for me, if I'm going to go into a new advertising channel, for example, if I want to say, I want to start doing cold outbound. Well, I actually have a great story about this. When we started doing cold outbound for Gym Launch, my executive team, so, not like experienced people, about 3 or 4 months in, basically did like an intervention with me. And they said, you're putting all of your time and attention to this. We think this is a shiny object, using my words against me, right? This is a woman in the red dress. And we think you should stop and let's double down on what works, which for us at the time was paid ads and some content. And the thing is that they were too far away to know the progress we were making. And so they just saw that we basically hadn't made any sales. We made 1 sale in like 3 months. But I knew that the first problem we had is we didn't know where to get the data from. Where do we get these lists from? So then we finally got the list, and we're like, okay, but no one's picking up. Oh, we have to enrich the data. Okay, then we enrich the data. Then no one was still picking up. So then we're like, oh, well, we have to find out how to get people to pick up. So we have to do local call wrapping on our phone so that it increases the pickup frequency. So then people start picking up, but then no one wanted to book a call because our script was off. So we fixed the hook, and then people would listen to us, but they didn't like the offers. And we fixed the offer. Then people came to the second call, but then they weren't showing up to the second call. And then we were like, okay, we have to create a follow-up sequence. Now, at this point, they're like, hey, you need to stop. But it was just, we have 100 steps that we have to take, and we're 33% of the way there. But if you're a beginner, you don't know you're 33% of the way there. And so I think one of the difficult things as a beginner is that there is a leap of faith. Like when you do your first week at the gym, you're not going to get results. But it doesn't mean that working out's wrong. It just means you're measuring on the wrong time horizon. And I think one of the things that has thrown a ton of beginners off is the understanding of volatility and volume. So basically, when you have a new business or a new endeavor, what appears inconsistent or volatile is typically a function of doing too little volume. And
About my business. For example, let's check this out. For example, if I said, hey, let's come down here. Hey, do me a favor, tell me how many different Nando's are there in Leeds and what are their addresses? I finish this, I come down, let me come and test this workflow. Check this out, guys. It begins, it's going to use the SERP API to give us some information. And guys, look at this. Every single Nando's exists, so it's got internet access. The other cool thing it can do, if I come over here, guys, look, I've uploaded this piece of information to its database. It's about a fictitious client. I said, hey, the quarterly fee is £20,000. It's uploaded in my RAG database here. Now, this is going to freaking blow your mind. Check this out. And the really cool thing here, guys, is with all setup and automation, it means that whenever you upload any file to this Google Drive, it will be updated to its knowledge base automatically, and you'll be able to access it with your virtual assistant as kind of Maverick. Now, look, if I come back and ask it a question, it could only possibly know if it accesses its database. So let's just check this out, for example, right? Hey, do me a favor, what is the quarterly fee with Singer Enterprises? Now come over here, I test this workflow and just look at what it does. It comes out, it will check out this retrieval section. Now look, you can see how it works. It's gone down, it's figured everything out, and you can see it working in the background, right? So we come back over, it sent us a message, and what does it say here? The quarterly fee for Singer Enterprises is £20,000, which is paid in advance. And if you look right here, guys, that's exactly what it said right here. If it is paid in advance, verbatim, it's copied that. This AI agent has access to
Yes, let's go. This is brilliant. This is beautiful. Hey, let's go forward. Yes. Yes.
And so it's like one sale comes in every, a couple weeks. I'm still, but if we look at the activities that generate that sale, it's like you might have done 100 reach outs over 30 days, and then one of them becomes a sale. So it appears volatile, but really it's just you got 1%, and you're doing far too little. And so if we did 100 a day, then all of a sudden we might make one sale a day. And all of a sudden it seemed very consistent. And so the volatility is only a function of insufficient volume. And so I think that misconception is why many people who start out fail quickly or choose not to start because they are measuring their feedback loop on too short of a time horizon.
All right, so if 90% of businesses fail outright, 96% fail to break $1 million, and only 4% go over that. What is it that those have in common? The ones that make it, do they share something in common, and if so, what?
Well, I think to cross $1 million, you need a consistent acquisition process. I think that's about it.
Customer acquisition.
Customer acquisition process. Like in the beginning, you have to do something, period. 0 to 1, you have to do something, and then you have to make your first dollar. And then your advertising is inconsistent because you're inconsistent. Once you become consistent, then your sales become inconsistent because you don't have a process. So then you have to dial in the sales process. So basically, advertising and sales have to become a consistent process with predictive metrics. We know that if we do 100 primary actions, whether that's 100 posts, $100 in ad spend, 100 reach outs, that will generate this many leads, which generates this many calls, which generates this many sales. And it could be on e-commerce, or it could be in a service or environment like I'm describing with calls. But fundamentally, you just have to get to that equation. And once you get there, then it's just inputs and outputs. And then you're just pouring as much in and then figuring out what the constraints are from you putting more in. At least that's how I think.
Do you force yourself to predict the outcome of initiative before you do it?
Not as much as I used to be really honest with you. This is actually a huge change for me in terms of how we grow our portfolio now. I'm actually really curious what you think on this. But I heard Jensen Huang say it, and so I feel like a little bit better. But basically, they did away with all long-term planning. And I always felt like long-term planning, because when I got a year later, I was like, half these things that we were talking about a year ago, the variables of the environment, talent, many of the major movers have changed what the priorities are in the business. And so I focus almost exclusively now on what are we going to do in the next 12 weeks. Now, we obviously have long-term objectives, but I don't want to plan out forecasts and basically obsess and get everything down to the decimal when I can't even estimate the big forces that are going to be at play. Now, if I say, I think if we build the brand this year, that is a good thing, and that's our number one priority, then great, then I can reverse that. But I'm reversing it only into the present for the next 12 weeks because things will change.
Very interesting. So I'm thinking a slightly different angle. So here's what I always tell entrepreneurs to do. So you describe a very similar thing to the way that I try to go about scaling, which I call the physics of progress.
Okay.
So to me, progress has a nature. There's just a way that it works. So you
Okay.
try a thing and it either works or it doesn't. But to know if it worked, you had to say, this is where I'm trying to end up.
Yeah.
This is what I think is my obstacle. This is the thing I think I need to do to overcome my obstacle. Now I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
But what I find is entrepreneurs will lie to themselves when they get the result. And they'll be like, yeah, that's roughly what I expected. Now the problem is that will break their ability to do things as a thought exercise. And so now they have to actually test everything, not realizing they don't know how to predict the outcome. So what I tell them to do is look, and this is what I do myself, I'm going to do this thing, whether it's build a piece of content and put it out, whatever. And I think this is going to get 1 million views, 1.5, whatever. So when it does 75,000 views, I'm like, whoa, there is something I did not understand. And so when it comes to content, I'll even predict at the idea level, and okay, this is what I think it's going to get. Then we'll execute, and I'll say, actually, now seeing the execution, I don't think it's quite as good. And so now I think it's going to be this, and then you put it out. And that way, if you can really come to understand why something works or doesn't work, now you've got a better shot. But because I know I'm prone to lie to myself, that, that's roughly what I was expecting, because people want to look cool.
Yeah.
But you're saying in that scenario, you guys just sort of art by the pound.
Yeah,
Get a lot more things out. Are you looking to build intuition or?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm so aligned with what you said. What are the causal factors? And I mean, the whole common factors analysis concept is basically trying to do that. Like, how can we identify, like, we're going to do everything with these variables in addition to the last time. And if those variables don't meaningfully change, then they're not the correct variables. But it's so funny you said that, because I thought you were going to go in a different direction. So I've been putting together this $100 million scaling roadmap. It's probably the biggest project that I've done in a long time. It actually releases on Black Friday. It's free. It's free for everybody.
I'm so shocked. Alex Hormozy with the free stuff.
But first thing I spent a long time on was like, is there a micro framework that fits into this larger framework, which is like, how does anything scale? And then I try to make an acronym out of it, and I think I have a decent one. So S is start. You got to start. You have to do something. C is compound. You have to do more. So first you start, then you do more. A is augment, so then you do better. So it's like, okay, I've done a lot. That's the common factors part. So I'm going to try and do something better. L is leverage. So how can I get it to be consistent? How can I automate it? Both sides of that. And then E is expand. You do it again. So that's the loop. So that scaling loop exists on content at all levels, organizational structure, because that one, first we start, then we do more, then we do better, then we try and make it consistent and automate it, and then we expand to the next thing. That works for markets. It works all the way across. So that fundamental unit became how I thought through scaling all 8 departments, which is what I divide everything into. So it was customer service, product, sales, marketing, IT, HR, recruiting, and finance. I don't put legal in there because I didn't think it was, most people outsource their legal anyways for a while. And so those are the 8 functions that I had of the business, going from 0 to 500 people head count. I did 0 to 100 million because no one would know what 0 to 500 people would be. But most businesses at 500 head count are usually over 100 million. And it was easier to draw parallels on organizational structure rather than by revenue, because like a software company like school can do $100 million with 25 people, whereas a restaurant might do $1 million with 25 people. And so doing it by revenue felt too, it wouldn't be valid or useful. And so instead, I went by headcount, which had far more similarities. And so in thinking about that scaling, I broke it into, first there was functions, like what must occur in order for us to move to the next level. And then you have the people who do those functions. And then the third element is the operations that connects the people to the functions. And so that would be like training, meeting cadence, communication structures. That's all the operation side. And then the people is, what is the hierarchical, how does the hierarchy look? Who do you need to hire at what point, typically? And so that's basically the 3 sides of the pyramid in terms of thinking about scale. The scaling roadmap that I have, that I came out, is just the functions part, because it was already a monster. Basically, it's like an hour plus long video going through each of the functions of each of the departments at each level. And then I vetted it with a few of my friends who have multi-billion-dollar companies, and they were like, dude, this is so accurate, it's freaky. And so I was like, I felt really good about that. And they helped me with a couple of them, like, I would phrase it like this, and maybe this is, move this instead of here. But that micro framework of, you have to start, then we have to do more, then we have to do better, then we have to automate it or create some sort of leverage around it, and then we expand to the next thing, was the micro concept that I then applied across all departments to tease out the functions that happen at each level.
Makes a lot of sense. Now, so again, I'm always trying to figure out where people are going to fall down, because you can give this stuff to people and they're still going to struggle. So you said something earlier that is profoundly insightful, that I want to know how, if you have a method for that or if you just have a brain for it. But you said we need to get local call wrapping, as people are more likely to pick up a local number. So you're sitting in a room, you're not getting the results that you want, and you start thinking to yourself, what is stopping this from happening? Does it just bubble up into your conscious mind, or do you have a method?
So I would think, if I were to have to solve this problem out loud in front of everyone, I would think, okay, what we're doing is not working. What is it that increases the likelihood that I pick up my phone when a phone number calls? Okay, if I know the person and like them, that would be the highest likelihood person that I'd pick up. Okay, so Layla, that's the highest likelihood pickup. The second highest likelihood would be somebody that I know, so their number is saved. Okay, got it. Now, what numbers that I don't know would I be more likely to pick up than other numbers that I don't know? Well, a local number that would either be local for my hometown or local to my regional area. Those would be the two categories that I would probably pick. Now, the call wrapping feature that we were able to do could only do one of those, because it didn't know where they were, but it did know what area code they had, so we could call from that. But if there was another software, for example, that could do both, then that would have been even cooler. But that's how I would reason through it. And then obviously the lowest probability would be like a 4-digit number that's calling from, Zimbabwe, or a private call or something like that, I probably wouldn't pick up. And so I just walk through it from that perspective. Then I probably also ask other people, what are the calls that you'd be most likely to pick up? What are the calls, and walk through it, and then I would try and tease it out that way if I had to solve a problem.
Let me tell you about an AI tool that is changing how content creators work. If you're creating content, you know how time-consuming it is to find the perfect moments in your long-form videos. Clip Anything by Opus Clip, however, is designed to solve that problem. Clip Anything uses every a difference. Whether you're running a podcast, creating reaction videos, or making non-talking content like ASMR, Clip Anything max yourself hours of editing time. Go to opus.pro/clipanything to try it out for yourself. Again, that's opus.pro/clipanything. The number one regret I hear from successful entrepreneurs is not about failure, it's about hesitation. I've helped thousands of entrepreneurs start businesses, and they all say the same thing: I wish I had started sooner. And with Shopify, starting a business has never been easier. Their drag and drop templates get you up and running fast. Their social media tools let you sell anywhere people are scrolling, and they handle all the complex back-end stuff like shipping, taxes, payments, all from one dashboard. This lets you focus on what matters: building your business. With Shopify, your first sale isn't just possible, it's inevitable if you take action. Established in 2025 has a pretty nice ring to it, doesn't it? If you agree, sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/impact, all lowercase. Just go to shopify.com/impact to start selling with Shopify today. Now, let's get back to the show. This is so interesting. So that is one of my favorite things to do, is to go to a conference, stand up on stage with a microphone and say, okay, ask me your hardest question. I have nowhere to go. There's nowhere for me to hide. What is that biggest problem that you have in your business? I've had people ask me stuff like, I am a farmer in South America and I'm going up against the cartel. What do I do? I mean, like really crazy stuff. But if you can do what you just did in a formal fashion, which I'll round to thinking from first principles, like if you just start, so I'll tell entrepreneurs, you need to start at literal physics. Like, what do we know about physics? Start from there. So this was the thing at Quest, where we go to make the bar, everyone says the bar can't be made, and we're like, hold on, this does not violate the laws of physics. You then realize the thing that's actually stopping us is that for the last 70 years, corn has been subsidized by the government, so everybody uses high fructose corn syrup. So all the equipment that's being engineered is being engineered thinking.
And so we are going forward with the stream, cutting up my content. Everything that we have done,
Now maybe we're not willing to do it, but at least now I know what that sequence going back to a combustion engine. If you understand how the engine works, you can walk through and be like, it's broken right there. And now you can go, okay, how would I fix that? What is the level of physics that's going to carry across? Now, what you did, which is the shortcut that most people will take, is, look, I'm trying to sell a thing to a guy. And so now I'm just leaping to the physics of the human mind. So what do I know to be true about people? And the way that you just walked through that, it's so brilliant. How do you get people to do that? Like, do you have magic words? Do you have a training thing that you do for people that come on?
So, first off, I think it's a practice. I think it's a skill. I think you practice doing it over and over and over again, and you get better at doing it. But I would say the thing that I try to practice by modeling that other people can model is thinking about things only in the observable universe. And so eliminating a lot of the fanfare of like motivation, energy, frequency, manifestation, like all of these things. I see all of those as noises that we make with our faces that may or may not increase the likelihood that we take certain actions. And those actions have either high or low correlate or are high or low correlates for the outcome that we want. And so in trying to break apart a system or a department that's not working, I think about a lot in terms of approximations. What increases or decreases the likelihood that what we want to have happen happens? And that creates a really easy razor, black and white. Does this increase the likelihood? Okay, so if our team is incentivized on performance, we'll have a higher likelihood that they do the stuff that performs. If they're incentivized on hierarchy, then increases the likelihood that they will perform in terms of hierarchy in politics. So it's like, okay, well then I can bet, then I should do that. Then we have to get into the execution of it. But just from an ideological perspective, getting those, what would make it more likely to occur has been like my first razor for this. And then in terms of the creative problem solving, which I love that you just went through with the bar thing, is there was like an implied question that you asked, which is probably the two most frequently asked questions are the one I just said, which is what, does this increase or decrease the likelihood? And the second is, what would it take? And I love that question because it presumes or it assumes success, or it assumes reality that we can make a bar that would do that. Okay, then what would it take for that to happen? Well, I guess we'd have to like have our own facilities. Okay, well we'd have to have our own machine. Like we'd have to have a different supplier. It's okay, great. Now that we know what that is, do we have the resources today, or do we need to use resourcefulness? It's one of the two. Either we have the resources or we have to go get them. And is the trade-off for the outcome worth assembling those resources? And what I found, and this is really fun stuff, this is like probably the most fun thing that I do in my life, which is asking the question of like, okay, what would it take, what else would have to be true for impact theory to get 10 times the views in 12 months? It's not physically impossible. There's no reason for it to be. Like there's another YouTuber right now who's going to do it this year. So what would it take for us to get that? Now, that might mean we'd have to get the smartest people. Okay, well, what does it take to get the smartest people? Well, probably more money, or maybe some chunk of the upside, and maybe I have and I might not get that guy, but there's probably 10 of those guys or 20 of those guys. And if I go to all of them, is it reasonable to believe that all 20 will turn me down? Probably not. Okay, what offer would I need to give them to make it worth it for them? And then is what I give them worth less than what I get on the larger umbrella? And if the answer is no, then we make the trade. But I think a lot of people think in terms of, I'm here, how do I do more of what I'm doing, rather than what would have to be true for this to be 10 times bigger, and are the resources required to have that happen within my control? And oftentimes they are, but it's a move that's off the board. It's not in the immediate do more. And I'm all about do more, do better, like to be clear. But every once in a while, the order of magnitude changes to the business happen when you do something different. And it's usually, and to me that is strategy, is that you have limited resources against unlimited potential moves. There's a million things you can do, but you only have this much time, this much money, this many people. And so the best strategists, in my opinion, have the most visibility into the most potential moves and allocate the asset or the resources to the thing that gets the highest return. And I think the thought process of thinking, what would it take for this reality to be true, and then working backwards has been one of the most fruitful and productive thought processes that I go through from a strategic perspective.
Dude, violent agreement. So Lisa and I call it no bullshit, what would it take?
Okay.
So of everything you're trying to do in your business, no bullshit, what would it take? Again, you might not be willing to do it, but you shift out of problem mindset into solution-oriented mindset. This is one of the things that I find the hardest to instill in people, especially if just by nature they're a problem finder, where they can tell you all the reasons why something isn't going to work. But Peter Thiel has a really cool way to frame this, which is to ask, how do I make my 10-year plan happen in 6 months? Because he said everybody gets locked into this incrementalism, like how do I make this 10% better, 30% better? And he's like, you have to throw everything that you know away when you have to make something 10x or 100 times better. Now all of a sudden you're going to be reaching for what I call a frame of reference that is so radically different than the way that you look at the world now. And I'm always trying to get entrepreneurs to understand you are trapped inside of a frame of reference right now, and you don't even realize it. It's shit that your parents said to you when you were a kid. It's the girl that you asked out and it didn't go well. It's the first sales calls that you did and they failed. It's that business that went under. It's a thing a VC said to you one time in a meeting that just kicked you in the nuts. And once you understand, oh, okay, wait a second. I have to get out. This is the box that people are telling me to think outside of, and I have to find a way out of this. And that Peter Thiel angle of, I have to make something that I thought would take me 10 years. I have to make it happen in 6 months. And I refuse to let myself believe that it's impossible. So now it's like you said, what would have to be true?
Yeah. I love that. And for the beginner who's at zero, so we went sky, now we're going to go back down to dirt. The way that you'd frame that is, what would I have to do that would make it unreasonable that I didn't get a sale? Like, how much action would you be like, there's no way, there's no possible way that if I ask 1,000 people to buy something, one doesn't buy it? There's no way. And so then you take that and he's like, okay, well, just in case, I'll multiply by 10. If I ask 10,000 people, and the thing is that 10,000 is not that hard to do. Like, you hear that and you're like, 10,000, but like right now, if you think about that, you're like, well, I mean, yeah, obviously if I ask 10,000 people, okay, 100 people a day, 100 days. It's a quarter. And if right now you've been stuck in years of not making that first dollar, of years of wanting to start a business, then a quarter's nothing. And so again, we have this, well, it would be unreasonable that if you make, 10,000 asks of different people. And the thing is that you'll also have a feedback loop, which is that you'll look at the first 100. Well, which ones got closer to saying yes? Because you didn't get a yes yet, maybe you do get a yes on the first one. It happens a lot. People are like, they commit mentally to doing 10,000, and then by day 4, they're like, oh my God, I got a sale. But the idea, and maybe I should teach this differently, because maybe I should just say do 100 today, but I want people to stick with it. But when people do that, the feedback loop of which ones went well, which ones didn't go well, what did I do in the beginning? This one's I made a joke at the beginning. Okay, I'm gonna make a joke on all of them next time. Great. Now I made a joke. Okay, I got further in the sale with these guys. This guy even asked me about price. Okay, what happened in that one? Okay, this one I asked him about what he was struggling with earlier on. Okay, I'm gonna start asking that question too. So I'm gonna make my joke, and I'm gonna ask him what he's struggling with. And I'm gonna do that 100 times. And so that's the process of iteration that can get you to that first W. And then you just do it as many times as you can.
Yeah, iteration. It's funny, people are so terrified of failure that they don't even stop to think that, oh, if I could just not worry about embarrassing myself, then I could get in the game, throw the punches, look foolish, but I will get better and better. I've often joked, it's definitely not a joke, but I've often said that part of what is my superpower is that I can be embarrassed longer than the next person. And also, let me know what you think about this. I think you have, 8.4 billion chances to make a first impression. Probably more than that, because most people are going to forget that they ever encountered you in the first place. And so getting out, ultimately, I think what people care about is they have a screaming problem that you make go away, and they'll forgive everything that they've encountered up to that point if you can. And somebody that they respect told them, no, for real, this works.
I think you have a 100% chance of bothering somebody on earth by existing. And so if every action you take has somebody who will hate it, then it kind of cancels everything out, and you might as well just do whatever you're going to do anyways.
Very fair. Speaking of somebody that clearly winds people up, you mentioned Elon earlier.
Yeah.
What is it that makes him special?
So many things, how many guys have $6 billion companies and run all of them?
Nuts.
And have time to go all in on political campaigns in the meantime, notwithstanding what side or any of that, but just the big question that I feel like is the unspoken one right now, at least in the zeitgeist of the entrepreneur world, is how does he do it? And I love the impossible nature of the feats that he takes on, literally pushing the realm of physics, obviously with SpaceX, but he reinvented the car industry. He's creating brain chips. He's aggressively attacking AI. I'm sure you saw the Jensen Huang interview where he's like, he did in 19 days what everyone else takes 3 years to do. And so we're talking multiple orders of magnitude in terms of improvement compared to the basics, because he starts at physics and works his way up, but he truly does it because he's also like a physicist.
Right.
And like,
He actually
really
understands
knows
physics,
it.
yeah.
He really knows it. Like I get to pretend to sound intellectually, whatever. He really does. And so that's his material achievements. But I think the thing that I admire the most is the balls. The man is not a coward. And I think that in thinking about him, I think about what are the things that he does? What are the things that I do? He is more successful than me. How can I do more of those actions that he does in order to approximate his success? And so I think modeling is one of the most effective ways for people to learn. It's how children learn. It's how monkeys learn. It's cross-species. And I think that he functions as a model for many people. Now, again, he only became political in the last 3 years. So if you all of a sudden now hate him, like maybe question that if you didn't hate him 3 years ago. But you cannot question that he is the best. Like right now, people say he's the best entrepreneur of our generation. I think he's the best entrepreneur of all time.
It seems like it to me.
It's not even, to me, it's not even close. Like he is, yeah, I mean, I could get on an Elon parade, but he has forced me to think significantly bigger about the problems that I want to take on and who I want to become and what to do with the small platform that I have that best serves humanity. And so that's what, and I think, at least from my point of view, that he really.
And it's meant to take that energy a little bit away. So your energy just gets built up, especially your sexual energy, and this is why the porn's there. And if you don't do anything beforehand to kind of stabilize that, it's just you're going to be triggered so easily, and you're not going to have any control over it. And because you don't have any control over it, your confidence goes down, everything, your self-respect, respect from other people, everything goes down because you have zero control over your, the most important energy that you were given in your whole life, right? So we've created this cool everything goes respect from other people. Everything, your self-respect, respect from other people, everything goes down because you have zero control over your, the most important energy that you were given in your whole life, right? So we've created this cool course, and it's just in part of the program. This is something that we suggest you do, for these 30 days of this program, followed by the other resources that we'll get into as well. So this course it's just very simple. Squats, breath work, and the breath work really is a powerful thing. I worked a little bit with Wim Hof and was very heavily inspired by him. I found him when I was in Mexico City doing some other therapy work there with what's called ibogaine treatment. Anyway, it's a whole other thing. But this breath work I realized was so important because it gets your dopamine. You feel like kind of that rush, that dopamine rush, and it starts getting things more balanced there. So we add that in with this physical exercise, like Florian perfectly said, that this gets you kind of balanced out. So that way you carry on these 30 days a lot balanced out. That this perfectly said that this gets you kind of balanced out, so that way you carry on these 30 days a lot better. And this is built into the program. It's very easy. Once you sign up with us, it'll go right into your email. You'll have access to that for life anyway. So this 30 days, the things that we'll get into, so that way you carry on these 30 days a lot better. And this is built into the program. It's very easy. Once you sign up with us, it'll go right into
Psychology.
access to that for life anyway.
It's easy.
So this 30 days, the things that we'll get into are only included like our direct communication. So we'll be messaging you every day for these 30 days. Video messages, checking in. You'll basically have access to us, within these 30 days. That's what's included in the price. But also you'll have lifetime access to the app in this 30-day challenge. So, and we call this challenge the Semen Retention Challenge.
like that. We are in this. We're not here holding your hands. We're not babysitting. Nothing like that. We've created all these tools because we're letting you take control of your life. And how good is that going to feel? Letting you, because we're creating all these tools. We've created all these tools because we're letting you take control of your life. And how good is that going to feel after the end of this 30 days that you really did it? You did it yourself. We're just kind of showing you tools because we happen to. We just showed you did it yourself. We're just kind of showing you tools because we have.
All right, it's up to 5 minutes. I am priming my mind to learn how to speak to the client, to the desires of the client. All right, let's go. Lunch and meeting.